And if this is your first time giving your mind a little love, I have a few goodies for you. First, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And second, sign up for the Morning Mind Love. Think of it like a weekday oracle from your highest self to help you start each day with a positive focus. Plus, you'll get 2 gifts absolutely free: a 30-minute binaural meditation and 30 days of journaling prompts to help you remember who you truly are. So join over 9,000 people and go to mindlove.com to sign up. Welcome to Mind Love, episode 269. Today's episode is all about rejecting the lie that you aren't good enough by killing comparison.
Some of us have had all types of negative words spoken over us that have made us see ourselves as fractured and as broken. And so other people, they may speak words over us that are negative, and we internalize those things, not realizing that they're speaking out of their deficiency, not yours. They're speaking out of their deficiency because, again, people do what they do. They say what they do because of them, not because of you, but we internalize it. And next thing you know, we see ourselves as less than because a person used the hand of their tongue to make us believe that we're not worthy.
Turn up your frequency with Mind Love. Bite-sized brain hacks for seekers, dreamers, and doers. It's time to give your mind a little love with your host, Melissa Monti.
If this is your first time giving your mind a little love, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Mind love is a habit, and the more you give your mind that love and intention, the better you'll feel about yourself and your life. Plus, it's really a win-win because more subscribers means Mind Love attracts even more amazing guests to bring you their wisdom. So don't forget to subscribe. Today, I want to share a short and sweet review from Carla, who says, "Thank you, Melissa, for this podcast. I love the insight, tips, and mind love you share with all of us." Well, thank you, Carla, for taking the time. You know how much it means to me, and today you are my favorite person. Do you struggle with comparison? I think we all do, or at least most of us do. It's kind of hard to avoid these days with the social media environment that we live in. We're constantly streaming everyone else's highlight reels, from their homes to their clothes and their kids' clothes and the endless products that influencers are pushing. And that damn Instagram ad algorithm, they know exactly what I want. We see what everyone else has and we think we need it. And I have a good example. I have the snoo bassinet on my baby registry right now, even though I already have a bassinet that worked just fine with my first baby. But everyone says how good it is, and anything for a few extra hours of sleep during that crazy newborn stage. So I clearly need it, right? Which, by the way, if any of this is ringing true, do not miss my next episode with Tracy McCubbin, all about how to stop attracting clutter, because she has a lot to say about our use of the word need, and becoming more mindful in that area has already helped my spending. Well, the problem with comparison is that it creates a sense of lack. You see what everyone else has and you think, I don't have that, which creates feelings of inadequacy, jealousy, resentment. It sets our focus on what we don't have and why we don't have it. You see someone else's success and think, well, I'm not doing that well. You see someone else's happy relationship and think, well, I'm not in a happy relationship. You see someone else's healthy body and you think, I don't like my body right now. Or you see someone else's life and you think, I'm not living that way. And so the problem with focusing on what we don't have is that we can't see what we do have. We can't see our own successes. We can't see our own happy relationships. We can't see our own healthy, beautiful bodies. We can't see our own lives. And all of this means that we miss out on the good that is right in front of us. The other problem with comparison is that it leads to unrealistic expectations. Usually, we're comparing our behind the scenes to other people's highlight reels. We're not seeing the whole picture, so we're setting ourselves up for disappointment. So what do we do about it? How do we train our minds to stay out of the comparison spiral so that we can see our lives and ourselves for what they really are? Well, that's what we're talking about today. Our guest is Nona Jones. She's an international speaker, preacher, author, and the head of global faith-based partnerships at Facebook. She's also the author of Killing Comparison. So 3 key things we will learn are all about the 2 types of comparison, inspiration and expiration, the 5 most common insecure foundations, and how to find a more secure foundation to build our worth upon, and 3 steps to detox comparison for good. When you're growing a business, most people think the hardest part is getting clients or making money. But I think it's finding people who actually care about the work as much as you do. And I've been there. I've posted a job, got 100 applications, and maybe 3 of them actually read the job description. And it's kind of soul crushing when you're trying to build something that actually matters. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen by other job sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so that you can reach the people you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. One of the things I love about Indeed is that it just makes hiring so fast because you're reaching people who actually are looking for work, not just casually browsing. Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. And guess how fast it is? In the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/mindlove. Just go to Indeed.com/mindlove right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/mindlove. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. I used to be one of those people who had grand plans for a big healthy meal every Sunday night, and I'd make these elaborate meal plans, buy all the ingredients, and then Wednesday would roll around and I'd be staring at that wilted spinach, ordering takeout again. Shopping, planning, and cooking food really can be simple and stress-free, and that's why I love Hungry Root. Hungry Root takes stress out of mealtime by filling your cart with personalized picks and planning your week of meals, getting smarter with every order. With over 15,000 recipes to choose from each week, many ready in just 15 minutes or less, it's so perfect for those nights when you have no energy left. What I love most is their smart cart technology. It actually learns what I like and what I will actually cook. So no more buying ingredients for recipes that I'll never make. Everything that shows up, I actually use. They screen out over 200 additives, including high fructose corn syrup and artificial sweeteners, only high quality meat and seafood with no hormones or antibiotics, and they carry brands like Vital Farms and Ithaca hummus that I already trust. The time I've gotten back has been incredible. Instead of spending Sunday meal planning, I'm doing things that actually matter to me. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/mindlove and use code mindlove. That's hungryroot.com/mindlove, code mindlove to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/mindlove, code mindlove.
I've got 20 minutes till Run Club meets, and it's time for a quick pre-workout snack. Go Squeeze Active Fruit Blend to the rescue. Made with select B vitamins to help release energy, it's an easy, squeezable pouch made to move with me. The taste? So good. And made with real fruit. Even better. Whether I'm hitting the trail or meeting my friends on the court, this is my go-to on-the-go snack. Quick, easy, ready when I am. When it's go time, I go with Go Squeeze Active. Snag yours on your next door run. Search for Go Squeeze on Amazon.
And now let's welcome Nona Jones to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
So what inspired your recent focus on comparison?
I've been really, really fortunate. I've been blessed in my life to have a great career. And, I'm a speaker, so I get to travel around the world, and I've written some books. And I think a lot of times we look at people who are successful and we assume, man, they must have it all together. Like they must be the most secure people on earth. And back in 2020, I had a situation happen where I realized I was not as secure as I thought I was. I was about to log on to a video conference for work one morning, and I went on to Instagram just to quickly check my comments really quick. And I saw a post from a friend of mine who was announcing that she was so excited because she had been invited to speak at this huge virtual women's conference. And, with the pandemic having spun up, a lot of the speaking engagements that I had got postponed or canceled because of the pandemic. Well, I saw her post and I was just like, oh, now that's really cool. Well, I scrolled down a little bit further and I saw another friend who made a post about being so excited to be speaking at this huge virtual women's conference. I was like, that's interesting. And I scrolled down and I saw another friend, and I scrolled down again and there was another friend and then another friend and then another friend. And it ended up where I knew all of the speakers and I knew the host, and a question began to percolate in my mind, which was like, why wasn't I invited to speak? Why was I considered not to be good enough? Why did I not measure up? And I clicked on people's profiles to figure out, how many followers they had in comparison to me. I was trying to figure out what other events they were speaking at in comparison to me. And while I was doing all of that comparison calculus, I was like, why her, not me? Why am I not good enough? Another question kind of entered into my mind, which was, why does this matter? Why does this matter? Why is this bothering me? And it was that question that kind of placed me on the path to really try to figure out, what is it that's creating insecurity in my life such that I could have all that I've ever wanted, and yet I can see somebody else's success as my failure. And I think many of us find ourselves in that situation. And so that's what got me on the path to writing this book.
I relate so much from all of the levels of this comparison trap. I was reading your book, and even that one moment of like the first time that somebody's words penetrated you about your body, I can remember exactly where I was, like near which lockers in middle school when somebody first negatively commented on my body. And I think I still hold on to that. It's something I've worked through a lot, but now it's just, I always say that new levels bring new monsters. And so it might just be the same idea, but in a different costume type thing where it's like, I'm still comparing, I'm still not feeling good enough, I'm still whatever. And I used to think that I would get to this point of just not feeling that at all. And now for me, I believe that now I just have more tools to deal with it. I know how to talk myself down. I know how to work through it to find the deeper meaning under the insecurity. And so I'm curious though, you said that at the core of our insecurities is really this need to be worthy. Can you go deeper on that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think, look, social media is constantly blamed for causing insecurity. And while I do agree that social media exposes our insecurity, I don't believe it's the source of our insecurity, because in reality, if you think about it, we felt like we didn't measure up before Facebook, before Instagram. Maybe there was someone in our class that we felt like was more beautiful, more popular than we were. Maybe there was a coworker or a colleague who always seemed like they were getting promoted, always seemed like they were the ones that were winning whatever the competition was. And so we start to feel less than. We start to feel like we don't measure up because we see these other people and it seems like they're thriving, and their thriving makes us question our worthiness. What ultimately happens is we begin to use them as the measuring stick for our worthiness. We see ourselves as only as valuable to the degree that we either are at their level or surpass their level. And so I do think that at the root of this problem is a question of worthiness. And some people say that insecurity is a derivative of low self-esteem, but I don't agree with that, because you can memorize, my husband and I pastor a church. So, you can memorize scriptures about how you're fearfully and wonderfully made. And, you can memorize scriptures about how deeply loved you are by God. Or, if you're not into church, maybe you're into affirmations. You could say, I'm good enough. I'm smart enough. People like me. I'm beautiful. I'm successful. You can memorize all those affirmations and still experience insecurity, because insecurity is not a function of self-esteem. It's a function of what your identity is secured to. And if your identity is secured to something that's insecure, something that's subject to the approval of people, you're going to feel insecure. Why? Because people's opinions change. One day you're the best thing since sliced bread. The next day, people aren't even returning your call. And so you can end up on this slippery slope of worthiness when you place your identity in the hands of other people's assessment.
Ooh, identity. That is so powerful, because if your identity is secured to something that's not secure, I've never really thought about it that way, but it's so true, because I am always kind of reflecting on my past. And I was just saying on a podcast interview I was on about how for years, probably until I was about 25, I didn't even see that most of my self-worth came from the outside in and not the inside out. And so a huge part of my self-development journey, when I started to actually heal my life instead of just continuing the downward spiral, was when I started to get in touch with myself and know what I stood for. And that knowing what I stood for included actually getting to know myself, which I hadn't done. I like to give the comparison of, like, if you go on a date with somebody new and you just go hang out at the movies for 30 dates. Yeah, you've spent like 90 hours with this guy, but
Right.
you've never talked. You have no idea who he is. You've never witnessed his patterns. Maybe how loud he chews popcorn, but that's about it. And so the same thing I think we do with ourselves, where we think that because we spend so much time with ourselves that we know ourselves the best. But are we really aware of ourselves, or are we just on autopilot, kind of moving through, kind of seeing what's cool that's around us, seeing what's considered beautiful, seeing what's considered successful, and not really digging in and asking, well, what is my definition of beauty? What is my definition of success? And can I build my life around that? And when I started to do that, that's when I started to feel confident in who I was, because I wasn't building myself for everyone else. I was building myself for what was true to me.
That's so good. And I think that's one of the hardest things for people to do, because look, we have eyes, right? So we can see when other people are maybe getting more shine or more approval. And so I think the human tendency, the natural tendency, is for us to gravitate toward the applause, toward what we see other people applauding. But to your point, I think when we learn how to anchor our identity to our unique purpose without respect to whether or not people approve of us, whether people applaud us, when we learn to do that, we will reclaim a level of power that so many people don't have. I believe that the richest place on earth is actually the cemetery, because so many people died with unrealized potential on the inside of them, because people either said, oh, you shouldn't do that, or you're not qualified for that, or, why would you think that you could do that thing? And they listen to them. Sometimes we are the only ones who believe in us. And I think being a secure person means that we learn to yield to our own voice as opposed to the voices that are diminishing us.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so difficult. We have all of these tools that seem like they're helpful, that seem like they connect us, but really, if we are honest with ourselves, I don't know. I felt more disconnected since I've been on Instagram than I felt connected, honestly. It's that illusion of sort of connection and that illusion of friendship, when really we're all just scrolling and comparing ourselves to each other. And
That's right.
I post my highlight reel. I try to post the bad stuff too, but man, if I take a good picture, it's going up, That's
right.
Rare I even have makeup on. But you talk about two different types of comparison: inspiration and expiration. What's the difference? You talk about two different types of comparison, inspiration and expiration. What's the difference?
So, this was actually a really important insight that I had when I started to do my work to get free from insecurity. And I was a microbiology and cell science major in college. And physiologically, when we inhale air into our lungs, that's actually a process known as inspiration. So, you inspire air, it breathes life into your body, you feel invigorated, you feel empowered. And healthy comparison inspires you. So when you look at somebody and maybe they have achieved something that you want to achieve and you're inspired by them, they activate your potential. That's healthy comparison. For myself, people, they may look at me today and not believe it, but 10 years ago, I was more than 100 pounds heavier than I am today. I had struggled with my weight my entire life. I had done fad diets and all those things, and nothing worked. And then one day I was scrolling through YouTube and I came across a video of a woman who at the time, she had been about my weight, and she was sharing her weight loss journey, how she had lost 100 pounds. And looking at her journey, like I saw myself, I was like, if she can do it, man, maybe I can do it. So I started to watch all of her videos. I learned her different plans and I was like, let me try it. And sure enough, like I ended up losing weight because that healthy comparison activated my potential. Now, the flip side of that is the physiological process when we exhale air out of our lungs, that's known as expiration. So when we breathe air out, we feel tired, we feel exhausted, we feel fatigued. And this is why when a person takes their last breath, it's called their expiration date. Toxic comparison, it kills our identity. It kills our sense of worth. It actually kills our potential. And this is why we have to be really careful to guard against toxic comparison. So when we see somebody else win, we don't feel like we somehow lost just because they won. That's what toxic comparison does, is it makes you feel like, wow, their win is somehow my loss. So those are the differences between healthy comparison and toxic comparison.
I have noticed that the more I really work on myself, it's kind of like when you have a project. I'm kind of knee deep in diving into a project I hadn't touched in a while, and I've been putting it off forever, and I just didn't feel good about it. And now that I'm back in the weeds and I see all the moving parts, I'm like, oh yeah, I can do this. Like I know what's in here. It doesn't feel so scary anymore. And the same thing happened when I started to work on myself, because there were all these things that, I thought I wasn't good enough around, and didn't really know where to start, like had a lot of bad habits I needed to make changes to. And so then every time one of those popped up, I just felt worse about myself. And then I started to work on one at a time. And at first, right getting into it, it was very difficult not to focus on the gap of where I was and where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
But I did feel inspired. And the more that I made little progresses and actually brought awareness to them, which I think that is the biggest part of it, because I've also worked on myself, not brought awareness, and all I can see is that gap. But instead, like whatever it takes for you, like tracking your wins, writing down gratitude at the end of the day, whatever it is, to really bring an intentional focus on it, then it wasn't about the gap anymore, because that's not what I was counting. I was counting these little tiny wins. And so small little things all of a sudden made me feel like I can do all of it because I'm doing some of it. And so in doing that, I automatically compared a little bit less, because now I wasn't just somebody that was left behind from all these people. I was somebody that was on the journey with them, even if I was a little bit further back from where they might be at that point. And so we're both making progress. And so it was easy to be inspired. But what surprised me was that the longer I was on the journey, there's certain points of it that maybe took longer, that I didn't check off as fast. Some of those same sources of inspiration started to become sources of expiration, because I'm like, wait, they did this in 2 years. I've been at this for 5. Like, why is this not working for me like it's working for them? Or I gave up, or I couldn't do this, or whatever it is. How do you check in with yourself to make sure that a source that you chose or something along those lines is still actually aiding in your progress and it doesn't even necessarily need to be progress for change, but just not adding to your insecurity, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think it's so important to be self-aware. And I love how you articulated just the different methods that you can use. Number one, to be self-aware, but also to keep yourself encouraged. I think, and I talk about this extensively in the book, one of the keys to getting free from insecurity requires recognizing when you're feeling triggered. And some of those things can happen because our emotions tell us when there are things happening inside of us that we may not even want to acknowledge. So, for example, let's say a friend of yours, happens to get married and, maybe you've been single and you thought that you'd be the first to get married. Well, that person gets married. And so you start to feel sadness. You may try to, deny it. You may try to say, oh, I'm actually happy for her. But that feeling of sadness lets you know that there's something happening inside of you. And I think you have to be willing to lean into that and explore that, because usually when we feel that way, there's a lie at the base of that situation that's making us believe we're not worthy. So, for example, you may be feeling sad because there's a lie that has made you think, oh, well, she's getting married, so that means that nobody wants me. And so I think checking in with yourself and just being honest with yourself about how you feel really matters. And then I think it's also important, to your point, to recognize, if certain things just aren't helping you or they're not healthy for you, you need to step away and back away. I talk a lot in the book about how social media, it can be such a great tool to keep us connected with our friends and our family. And it can also, unfortunately, be one of the biggest triggers for toxic comparison, because we're seeing everyone's highlight reels, like you said earlier. And so I recommend strongly that I call it weed our feed. If there are people in your, feed who are constantly flaunting their success, or maybe they're sharing things that just make you feel like you're not quite good enough, mute them. You may even unfollow them. And that's okay. Do what you have to do to guard your heart. Do what you have to do to protect your well-being, because ultimately that's what you're responsible for. Like, you're not responsible for making everybody happy. You're responsible for being healthy. And sometimes that means you have to disconnect from people. But again, it starts by just recognizing what you're feeling, recognizing what you're thinking. When those thoughts come across your mind, like, why her, not me? Why was I overlooked again? I'm never good enough. No one ever wants me. Those thoughts matter, because what that means is, again, there's a lie at the base of them that you need to excavate. And it gets back to the question that I stated at the very beginning, which is, why does it matter? Like, why does it matter? And how does it mattering shape the way that you see yourself? So those are just a few thoughts I would offer.
Yeah, that's so helpful. I have the belief that nothing is ever about other people. It's always about me. I'm just projecting things. And so I used to think, well, okay, this is triggering me. It's about me. What can I work on? And I still do think that. But what I did differently than I do now is that I would almost like force myself or succumb to the torture of like being triggered over and over again, not realizing that it was stopping me from being able to move forward. Now, yeah, if something keeps triggering me, I know it's about me. It's not about them. Like, maybe their life is exactly as this is, or, maybe they're sharing what they want to share, just like I share what I want to share, and they have the right to do that, obviously. But if I'm working through something, it's kind of like running on a broken leg. You don't keep training. You take a step back, you heal yourself, you work on yourself the way you need to, and then you can go back out there and run. And then you can refollow your wealthy hot bestie.
That's right. But not right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not now.
You have a quote that just reminds me of that says that, people don't see you as they are, or people don't see you as you are, but they see you as they are. And it's just
Correct.
So true, because we are just always projecting our realities onto other people, making assumptions, making judgments, and we separate ourselves. And I think that's what really takes us away from the oneness that we are here to experience.
100%. Yeah. And I think that's one of the hardest realizations I had is that just because someone, and I talk in the book about this idea that, words matter, the words that people speak over us, they have power. So in the book of Proverbs, I believe it's chapter 18, verse 31, it says, life and death are in the power of the tongue. And that word power, the word translated power there, is actually the Hebrew word which is yod, and it means hand. And so putting that together, life and death are in the hand of the tongue. So when people speak words, they're not just speaking, arbitrary words. No, they're actually shaping. They're actually molding, and they can actually shape life or they can shape death. It's just like if you think about a gun, right? So a gun, many people will say, oh my gosh, it's a deadly weapon. That is true. It can be a deadly weapon in a hand. And that same hand can also use that gun to protect a family, right? And so really and truly, the hand is neutral. The question is how it's used. And so some of us have had all types of negative words spoken over us that have made us see ourselves as fractured and as broken. And so other people, they may speak words over us that are negative, and we internalize those things, not realizing that they're speaking out of their deficiency, not yours. They're speaking out of their deficiency because, again, people do what they do. They say what they do because of them, not because of you, but we internalize it. And next thing you know, we see ourselves as less than because a person used the hand of their tongue to make us believe that we're not worthy.
My toddler has these books. They're the bucket filler books. One of my aunts is an author for one of them. I guess there's a lot of authors, but it's just funny because we read every night this idea of bucket filling, and everyone carries around an invisible bucket. And when you hear good words and compliments and are helpful, that's when your bucket gets filled, and we are constantly filling each other's buckets. But bucket dippers think that if they dip from someone's bucket, they can use it to fill their own, but they never do that. I've got all these children's little parables in my head, but it's funny how sometimes the really simple kind of cartoony ways to visualize something, it's so true. It's like when people feel low, they tend to want to bring other people down with them, but then you're both just stewing in your misery. And so it's something my husband and I are really aware of. Like when I'm having a bad day or something like that, I'm just like, I just need time. Like I need some self-care, whatever it is. And I know like he's the one that's going to help bring me up. And so that awareness that we've been able to cultivate in our relationship where I'm like, there's absolutely no way I want to bring him down. Then we're both down. How long is it going to take to bring ourselves up at this point? And so I'm like, when I'm down, all of a sudden my job is to like protect his joy. And then in doing that, I realize I kind of move through it even faster. But one of the things that you talk about is we talked about how, when we really base our self-worth or our security on the wrong things, that's when it's an insecure foundation. And you talk about 5 of those insecure foundations. What comes up for us the most? And you talk about 5 of those insecure foundations. What comes up for us the most?
Oh, man. Well, so I think there are obviously several, but I think there's 2 of them that I'll focus on. One is marital status. So whether a person, I think, is married or single, many times, especially if they're single. And I think it's because in society, there tends to be so much weight placed on, are you married? As if like being married is somehow the pinnacle of desirability. And so what happens is I know several women who are in relationships with guys who frankly don't deserve them at all, because they just want to be able to say, I'm in a relationship. So yeah, I think marital status is one of those insecure foundations, to the point where sometimes our identity can get so wrapped around the marriage that should, in the unfortunate event a divorce occurs, people feel completely lost because all they ever had in their mind was an identity that was tied to their marriage. So I think marital status is an insecure foundation that if we're not careful, we will derive our sense of worthiness from being married. The second one, and I think this is for men and women, is physical appearance. We end up, and I share a few stories in the book about my own struggles with, body dysmorphia and eating disorders and even surgical procedures, because I was trying to pursue the ideal of beauty in such a way that I would try to, alter myself. And I think many people are doing that. They're on diets, they're spending thousands of dollars, getting all types of surgeries because they're trying to measure up. But one of the points I make in the book is that it's a slippery slope because we tend to think that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but it's so subjective. Like there are some people who think, full lips are beautiful. So they go and they get, lip injections. But then there's other people who think full lips are not. And so they see the full lips and they're just like, what's wrong with your lips? And so you end up on this hamster wheel where nothing's ever good enough. And so that's really what the whole concept of an insecure foundation is that it's subjective. Financial status, that's subjective too. I mean, look, I don't care how much money you have. There's probably somebody who has more money. So yeah, those are just important things for us to understand, which is what's supposed to help us anchor our identity, is a secure foundation. So it's not something that's subject to people's approval or opinions.
I went down the same route. I was building myself up based on what I thought I was supposed to be. I got a boob job at one point. One of my only regrets, only because I want them out so bad. They just don't feel like in alignment. I mean, they look great, but they do not feel in alignment with who I am. I honestly felt better when I had small boobs, like, I don't know, the cute little outfits I could wear without feeling like I was flaunting, which I didn't expect to feel. I don't know. But it's funny because you talk about how it's subjective, and I can see the subjectiveness even within my own self. And I remember experiencing something when I was kind of just moving through I did all the things. I lived in LA. I was getting fake eyelashes. My hair was dyed. I still dye my hair. It's still fun. But like boob jobs, eyelash extensions, getting my eyebrows microbladed and dyed. Like I got permanent makeup on my lips at one point, which is way more temporary than they say it is. Thank God, though. Thank God.
Temporary permanent makeup. Yeah.
I know. I was actually really upset at first, and now I'm like, thank God that didn't work as well as they said it was going to. And so I was moving into this place of like really appreciating natural beauty. And I remember I was looking through Instagram and I had this one friend who I'd always just thought was the most beautiful. And she moved to a town like Vegas, and all of a sudden you could see how it was like trickling in, the bigger boob job, the lip injections, whatever. And I was just like, why did you do that to yourself? And then I had to stop myself and think, this is about me also. Like if this makes somebody else feel beautiful, like what is my judgment doing? I'm the only one that's holding on to it. And it was a reflection on how I was judging myself for the things that I could not yet change, like getting my breasts removed or whatever it is. And so even though I kind of felt like, I was going the right way this time, I was appreciating the natural beauty, I still had the same amount of judgment. And then it just showed me the next thing I needed to work on. But then it was a huge reflection for me that I'm like, I'm still looking at life through the outside in. I'm still looking at what other people are doing, and somehow it's affecting me. Even if I am not saying that it is. And so I went back to the foundations of just like, okay, well, what lights me up? What makes me happy? And the more that I do that, the less focused I am on anybody else. I'm building my life. I have nothing to say about theirs other than, do you need somebody to cheer you on? Do you need someone to tell you look beautiful, regardless of if you have big lips or not? Like I will be your hype woman. And so I'm curious for you, how do you choose a secure foundation? What are the things that you focus on in order to make sure that you're building up from the right place so that, that does spread to other people, so that we're not just sitting here judging ourselves and everyone else, regardless of what decisions we're making?
I think we have to get to a place, and you said it at the very beginning, we have to get to a place where we know who we are. And that's so hard because we live in a society that is it's intent on shaping us into what it thinks we should be, which is actually a really interesting point, because if you think about it, society is a composite of human beings. It's not like it's just this amorphous, non-human thing. No, it's composed of human beings. And so I think we have to get to the place that we really know who we are. We know what we like, what we don't like. I think similar to you, I have, being in a speaker, being someone who is in the public eye, I have felt oftentimes this pressure to conform. And yet that's not what brought me joy. And so I think at some point we have to be willing to say, you know what? This isn't bringing me joy. I would much rather have joy and not fit in than fit in and be miserable. And there are a lot of people who are fitting in, but they are not happy at all. And so I think one of the keys also to reclaiming your joy is to learn to see other people's success as an opportunity to celebrate them, not as a compulsion to become like them. That's hard, but it's an important line, which is, I can see you being successful. I can see other people celebrating your beauty, but I don't necessarily think I have to go under the knife in order to be like you. I can simply celebrate you. And I'm so glad that you're happy, assuming you are. But that comes with being the type of person that no longer sees another person as a threat, no longer sees another person as competition. I had a situation with someone who is a friend who released a book around the same time that I did. And I was seeing all of the success that was happening for her project. And, she was getting a lot of media. And I was like, man, this is going really well. Well, I started to feel like, wow, maybe she's going to have more success than I will. Clearly she's having more media than I am, so she's going to be more successful. Well, instead of allowing myself to kind of descend into those thoughts, I decided, what I'm going to do? I'm going to support her. So I went to Amazon, I bought her book. I even went and I prayed for her. I was like, Lord, I want you to bless her, enlarge her territory, exceed her own expectations, blow her mind. And then I texted her and I was like, I want you to know that I prayed for you and I bought your book and I want you to be successful. And I pray that this is a wild success. And after I did that, it's like I felt this weight lift from my heart, because I was no longer allowing toxic comparison to have residence in my heart. It was like, no, she's not my competition. She is simply someone who is operating in the lane of life that God has placed her in. And so I do think that's critical to anchoring our identity, is learning to celebrate other people's success instead of feeling threatened by it.
That has so much wisdom in it, because I have this practice or a mindset shift that I like to use that gets me out of comparison. And one of the things that I use is just thinking that, say I see all this success around me, because I was living in LA for a long time and I did have a really big circle of very successful people, levels of wealth that I hope to hit one day. Yeah. But, I don't know, yeah. I'm not sure I'll have that $18 million house. I don't know. And so I began to walk myself through it, because after a while, it's almost hard to look be at the event at that house and then at the time come back to my studio apartment, or whatever it is. And so I started to realize that there's a reason that I am seeing this. What if this is around me to show me what's possible? And what place would I rather be in? Be in a spot where I'm not forced to compare, or not in a position to compare at all, because I never see it. And so the idea of even thinking that rising that high is possible or impossible because you've never even witnessed it being done in your lifetime? Or would I rather see it with people that I know are deserving, with people that there's a reason that I'm friends with them?
Yeah.
And then know that that is an option in this world, whether or not that I get there. And so that's really helpful. But what I love that you added to it, because, it can be hard to kind of walk that line because it's a practice that I have to do. But then it's just like, yeah, but I'm still in this studio apartment or I'm still in this place or whatever it is. And so adding to the celebration of it without feeling like I need to walk those steps, because that's what I think I was inadvertently doing. Oh, there's a reason that I'm seeing this is possible. This is supposed to be meant for me. And so then when 3 more years happens and I'm like, okay, still can't afford that $19 million house or whatever. It's like, it was just kind of teetering, it worked most of the time, but not all the time. So I love that, just being able to celebrate, because that even moves us beyond judgment,
Absolutely.
I'm glad that you got the plastic surgery I would never get, if that's what makes you happy.
That's what makes you happy.
Like, thank God. I don't know what that person was dealing with the year before. How much were they beating themselves up? Was this helpful for them? Will they change their mind later? That's not for me. That's the next step in their journey. That's their walk with life. That has nothing to do with me. And all I'm here for is figuring out how to cultivate an energy that makes me feel good, and trusting that when I am in that energy, when I'm in that place, that's what's going to spread. That's what's going to make the difference. And not just in my life, in the lives that I come in contact with.
That's so, so good. Yeah. And I think you're so funny. I'm thinking about this $18 million house. Probably won't be my house, but at least I can visit. Yeah. I think that one of the most important steps we can take in getting free from insecurity, getting free from toxic comparison, again, is just realizing that we all have the capacity, even if we don't have millions of dollars, even if we're not the most beautiful, even if we're not, in the best marriage on earth, if we don't have all the academic credentials, if we don't have all that, we can still be a source of light and hope and encouragement in other people's lives. That simply takes a decision. It doesn't take money. It doesn't take a certain weight. It doesn't take, living in a certain neighborhood. We can still be a source of hope and light for other people. And frankly, I think that's how we actually build a legacy. And one of the points that I was trying to get across in Killing Comparison is that if you want to, it's actually the last chapter I talk about how to just live an encouraged and inspired life. If you want to really live an encouraged and inspired life, be the type of person that is for others what you wish others were for you. If you wish that other people would encourage you, be an encourager. If you wish that other people would support you, be a supporter. I think those are the ways that we kill comparison. And those are the ways that we actually experience blessings and joy and freedom in our life. So that's really what I'm hoping people walk away from this book with, is just, you have the power to actually live an encouraged and inspired life. And you don't have to succumb to what it seems like everybody else's success is. You can live the type of life where you have joy no matter what your circumstances are.
I so agree. And I love leaving listeners with something to focus on for the week. And I feel like your 3-step detox plan is the perfect actionable focus. Can you go into detail about what that looks like?
Yes. So to detox, the first step, I kind of mentioned it earlier, is you have to recognize what you're feeling, recognize what you're feeling, recognize what you're thinking. I think we spend so much time denying insecurity when in fact, we need to invest that energy and that time into defeating it. And you can't defeat what you don't acknowledge. And so I think first being willing to admit, seeing that other person thriving, that really is causing a challenge for me and how I see myself. And then again, why does it matter? So why do I think that their success is my failure? Tracing that all the way back to the words that have been spoken over you throughout your life. And where was it that you started to believe some lies as truth? So starting there is important. Recognize it. And then the second step, equally important, is you have to begin to reframe what you see. And reframing is all about changing your vantage point. It's about changing the way that you see something. And so to give a concrete example, let's say that your sibling is super successful, and maybe you've had a lot of challenges in life, and it just seems like everybody is always talking about how amazing your sibling is. And they're always like, when are you going to get it together? And that can be a source of animosity. That can be a source of jealousy. That's just human. I think the way to reframe that is, instead of seeing that sibling as someone who's doing better, it's like, man, how can I celebrate what they've done? Like, how can I be a cheerleader? How can I be an encourager for them? Putting yourself in a position to support them and to celebrate them, because then, yeah, when other people are celebrating them, it's no longer a threat. Now it's really more so an affirmation of what you believe as well. And so just not allowing people to pit you against anyone, because you're not in competition with anyone. So I think you have to reframe what may seem like somebody else's success that would normally trigger insecurity. Think about it as an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to grow. And then the third piece, I call it the release. It's recognizing when insecurity may be triggered, reframing it as an opportunity to celebrate somebody or learn from them, and then releasing that trigger and saying, you know what, I acknowledge that triggered me, and I am not willing to allow that trigger to change how I see myself, because I know who I am and my identity is anchored. I think those are 3 steps that if we take those repeatedly, day in and day out, we will experience freedom. And I will say this, it's not a one and done thing. I think sometimes we're like, show me the blueprint so I can just get over this and move on. But I do believe that part of our human condition is that we see other people, we see them and we see what they're doing. And so those triggers will happen. I have them every day. I have things trying to trigger me every single day. But because I have kind of put this detox process into place in such a regular way, a routine in my life, I'm able to experience freedom in spite of the triggers.
And it sounds like it could be work, but all it really is developing self-awareness. Because when you have the self-awareness,
100%.
then you're like, oh wait, I don't feel so good. What is that? What's that coming from? And then you just are down this thought rabbit hole of self-realization, and you end up growing almost automatically, because the awareness is what leads to the better that you know yourself, which is part of that awareness. Then you start to know how to treat your own wounds. And I think that's the important part, because I remember in the beginning of my journey, it just all felt like so much work. I didn't know how to treat my wounds. I didn't know how to see my triggers. I'm just like, I feel like I'm spiraling and there's so much work to do. But really, if you just take the pressure off and you're like, all right, just start to notice when I don't feel good. And instead of continuing to act in that energy and bringing people down around you, snapping at people at Starbucks, whatever you tend to do, then just, take a few deep breaths. Then it becomes fun. You're like, well, what makes me feel better? How much alone time do I tend to need after something like this? What questions can I ask myself so that I can learn in this moment rather than just acting? And so these are the things that lead to self-awareness. And before you know it, you end up kind of being your own inner guide with the help of whatever power that you use. And so thank you so much for bringing this wisdom to the podcast today. And for listeners that are interested in learning more about you and your book, where's the best place for them to connect?
So you can head to killingcomparison.com, and you can choose any of the book retailers that you want to. They're linked there. But yeah, killingcomparison.com. And then, of course, you can connect with me on my socials. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And my handle is the same across all of those spaces. It's just Nona, not Nora.
All the links for this episode will be at mindlove.com/269. Your challenge for this week, we just went over. She gave you a 3-step detox plan, but I know how things work. If you're overloaded with 3 whole steps, maybe you won't do anything. So I'm going to give you 1 step. I believe the most helpful thing that you can do this week is detox your social media feed. You know who those people are that trigger you. And if you're anything like me, you think that they are your favorite people to follow. They might even be the accounts that you look at the most, so it's going to be kind of a hard loss. At least that's how it was for me. There was one person that has this lifestyle that I wish I had, but just cannot attain, mostly because I don't have the space and the storage and the farm. There's also the ones that have the luxury that I'm just not at that level yet. And I like peeking into that life. It's probably the only reason anyone watches the Kardashians, which I do not, but no judgment because I'm still watching The Bachelor for some reason. Anyways, not the point. You know who these people are. The ones who get you to buy. The ones that you might accidentally be confusing with inspiring you because suddenly you feel inspired to go get this thing that you don't have, or spend money, or sit in your room and think about how terrible your life is. It sounds sad when I say it out loud because it is. But it's not far-fetched. It's what a lot of us are doing. We are looking at each other and thinking about what we are missing based on that, rather than how great we have it. And so declutter your social media feed. We're going to be talking about decluttering in the next episode, so get excited for that. But first, start with your social media feed. Have it be people that you actually want to connect with, people that make you feel whole already. And if that's not possible for you, maybe take a break from social media. And then focus on what you do have. Every time you find yourself thinking, my house isn't good enough, or my wardrobe isn't good enough, or I am not good enough, stop yourself and focus on abundance. See if you can reframe that to what you do have, the things about you that are amazing, the things about your home that you love, the things about your sense of style that you love, even if it's just that it's perfectly fitting to you and it's comfortable. And then see how you feel. It's when we actually take note on the changes in how we feel, the rewards of our new habits, that's when it starts to stick. So let me know how it goes. Reach out to me on Instagram at mindlovemelissa. And, if you need some inspiration, scope out my Instagram stories and see how not perfect my home is. You can support Mind Love by joining Mind Love Premium at mindlove.com/premium. You get a whole lot of extra episodes, over 50, soon to be 100, that are only for premium members. Some of them are the best that have ever been on the show. That's at mindlove.com/premium. You also get ad-free listening experience, early release episodes, and bonus meditations. You can also support my sponsors at mindlove.com/sponsors, or you can leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And that's all for today. So thanks for giving your mind a little love today, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning into Your Higher Frequency with Mind Love. Head to mindlove.com for a free gift to keep your vibes up until next week.